Welcome to In the Background of Life with Kelly Ramsey, the podcast that invites you to sit down in a cozy living space, sipping a cup of tea while we embark on a captivating journey about our intentional narratives in our lives. I'm Kelly Ramsey, and this podcast is your warm space to unravel the stories woven into everyday moments. It's a tapestry crafted with intention and purpose. So grab your favorite cup of tea, settle in, and let's explore the unnoticed details that contribute to the intentional design of the world around us. Together, we'll celebrate the beauty in the threads that make life extraordinary. Hi, welcome back. I am so excited to share with you today's episode, number 3, and continue our dialogue about motherhood. So this is Motherhood Part 2. In our last episode, we journeyed through 17 years of life with my oldest son. And today we're going to continue that journey as we talk about motherhood by celebrating the milestones of our journey. We always want to look at our journey as moving from one destination to another, having a vision for what is to come and to be, but also paying attention to what's on the road. What's the roadmap? What's the milestones that we'll encounter as we go forward? As a visionary leader, I'm always amazed at how vision can draw you to intention about our parenting journey and about any journey. So when we have a vision for what it will look like, then we start moving towards that direction. But along the way, there's milestones that happen that we lay down that show us we're on the right path or helps us to navigate our path. Sometimes we have to go back to those milestones as a reminder. And so we want to be sure that we understand what a milestone is. So a milestone is a significant event or a stage in life, which is what we're going to talk about today. And the milestone is important for navigating the journey, as I shared, but the milestone is also important for celebrating how far we've come. So as we celebrated last month, my son turning 17, I was reminded of every part of his journey, from his first birthday to starting his family child care program with his provider, to starting the first day of kindergarten, looking at school age years, middle school, and now high school. Each one of those stages brought him to another milestone in life. So as a child, you have milestones of learning to roll over, crawl, to walk, saying your first words, talking in full sentences and having ideas and sharing them. And so in that journey, we bring others along as we go forward. So when I think about the milestones that my child has made, my milestones as a parent can be at the same time, or it can be just ahead of them or behind them. Imagine that. So as my child is learning how to crawl and walk, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, was just a baby. I don't want him to grow up. I'm not ready for the next stage. But the amazing thing about children is that children continue to develop. They continue to go through the stages of development. I am so grateful that in those stages of development, I have partners that help me to navigate those stages. So we didn't come to 17 years of life without having partners in the journey. And that parenting journey comes with so many opportunities to learn and to grow. So now at 17, we're navigating the stages of early young adult stages. So not quite graduated yet. Next year will be high school, but already starting to have some experiences and rituals of learning that will guide them into adulthood. So learning how to drive, driving your first time on your own. So I was amazed this weekend. We celebrated Resurrection Day, and we were driving home from my sister-in-law's house. And I'm in the back seat with my 14-year-old, My husband's in the passenger side, and my oldest is driving. And as I'm sitting there, they're having conversation. He's listening to his music. I'm navigating all the back. I take a picture of this moment. I know you can see it with me in the back seat. And he's looking in the rearview mirror, looking at me like, really, Mom, are you really going to take a picture? And I was like, yep, I am taking a picture because this is one of those milestones I want to remember. So we can capture milestones in many different ways. And one way that I capture milestones is through photography. So I'll take pictures of everyday moments. I'll save memorabilia. I have lots of memorabilia as a scrapbooker. And I'll save those things and then create an album or maybe even just a folder. As I reminisce, I'll go through the folder and look at all of the memories that we've had. Each of those milestones represents a moment in time. So by taking that picture or writing it down in my journal, I've captured that moment of time. And then I can go back and reflect on what was really happening in that moment, what was really going on in the background of life as we were navigating that moment. And that reminds me of being in the mall and riding the elevator with the family who was going to take pictures for Christmas. It was early, like in November. And there was so much tension in that elevator. So the dad was there. I assume it was like his mother-in-law and the kids were there. And they were coming up the elevator. And then I watch them standing outside the studio as the mom approaches. And all focus turned to the mom, right? As motherhood, because we carry like so much. So she was just arriving. She's fussing over their children, making sure their hair is right, the right outfit. But you could see how much work it took to get her there, all the children, the grandmother, and that it was a little tense. But in the moment of taking the picture, that's not going to be captured. What's going to be captured are smiles and cheeses, and the photographer is going to do a great job of capturing the moment for them. But the reality is that picture has a background. It has a story. There was some frustration. There was a little anger, probably. Kids were fussy. They were hungry. They were ready to go. And so we want to tell both the story that the pictures tells, but the story of what's in the background. So as we navigate children's milestones, we navigate our own milestones as a parent and in our life, right? So there's two processes. One, my life as a parent, which journeys alongside of the child's milestones of giving birth, going home for the first time, giving their first baths, washing their hair, navigating when things are challenging or when they get sick. So as a parent, we're right there with the child navigating those things. But what if we took a deeper look about what's in the background? So we become a parent, but there was life before we became a parent. So before becoming a parent, we ourselves experienced childhood in whatever ways that looks like. So my childhood was in the Bay Area. I grew up as a firstborn granddaughter on both sides of my family, maternal and paternal. So I had lots of doting attention, lots of support, lots of people excited about who I was and that I came to be, right? And so in my nurturing, I was nurtured on both sides of my family. I was nurtured in my house, but I also was the firstborn, which means that there would be eventually some responsibility as being the firstborn. And even though we don't like to make a difference, sometimes there is a little difference in when our children are born and what order they're born, and also what's going on in the dynamics of our childhood in our life. So experiencing childhood as a parent comes around a second time when you yourself are parenting. So I often, as I was a teacher in early childhood, I would often ask parents, how did you do this when you were a child? What was your childhood like? What experiences did you have? How can you bring those to your children? And I remember one time in particular teaching for a program that was a bilingual program. and asking the moms about their own childhood songs and games and dances. And they were amazed that I wanted to know, number one. And two, they didn't think that was important to share with their children. So we sang their childhood songs during one of our circle times, and we made a recording on a cassette tape. So that's how long ago that was, but on a cassette tape so that they could hear themselves singing their songs to their children and they could play that tape at home. The parents came back and reported that was one of the most joyful experiences that they had. One, because they reminded them of the fun of their childhood, the richness of their childhood, and that they never imagined offering a little bit of who they were to their children would enrich the relationship with their children. So that serves as a reminder to us that we want to be sure that we don't forget about sharing our own experiences. Now, we recognize that not every childhood experience can be positive, that sometimes we may experience trauma, that there may be some regret, there may be some life lessons that weren't taught. And you get to choose. You get to choose what you pass down to your children, but you also get to choose how will you use that for life lessons as they move forward. So in our household, I've shared with you, my husband and I are raising our children based on how we were raised, but both of us are starkly different. So I was raised in the Bay Area in the 60s. He was raised in Oklahoma and in a home where his mom, his grandmother, his sisters and brothers were in the home, and there was a community there, right? And so our approach to parenting looks different through each of those lenses, but our intention is to give our children a real picture of what our childhood looked like and the lessons that we learned from that. So us experiencing childhood, early childhood years, our adolescence, our young adult years is going to influence how we parent, and most importantly for us as mothers, how we mother, right? And so we get to nurture and we get to learn how to build our own story of what we want to carry forward to our children. So we can imagine if our plot in life was that everything was in order, we became pregnant, the baby is growing and developing as they should. Now we're going through the stages of their young life. Or it may be similar to my story, becoming a parent later in life, suffering through a miscarriage, being distraught about that, and then bringing forth our first child and then our second child, and then nurturing and fostering them in that way. One of the lenses that I used in childhood as a mother is the early childhood lens because I was a teacher. And so that lent me the early years, birth to about 8 years old, a roadmap of what it looks like to parent at that age and stage and what children need. So you often saw many things I did in my classroom in my home. Because of that, my children are critical thinkers. They're able to process their own ideas. They have imagination. They have a love of reading and books because that's what we nurtured. That's a milestone that I remember. So thinking about the milestone of reading, I have videotape of both of my boys reading books to me as I'm in the bed. We're on break and they're reading and sounding out words and using phonics because those are things that were important to us. And so even today, that love of reading continued as they continued to develop. Now they're a little bit older, probably less likely to pick up a book and just sit in the corner and read. But every summer, we still do a reading challenge and they decide how many books they're going to read for the summer. And we make it a contest and see who's going to win. So all of those things are part of that parenting journey. The other thing I'm reminded of is that parents are navigating both raising their children and nurturing their development along with their own development. So maybe it's a career change that we're facing and we have to change our schedule and shift things. Maybe it's life changes, a loss, retirement, a change in jobs, financial difficulties. All of those things don't take a back seat as you're parenting, We're parenting and we're navigating everyday life. So it's important to have some principles that we can live by. One of the people that I really look to as a resource, as a mother and being a parent, I always look for resources that mirror what I was thinking about. And Ellen Galinsky with the Family Work Institute was one of my beacons. So even before I became a mom, I was working for a program that served parents, and we had the Working Mother magazine. And I would flip through to get ideas to share with parents, to share with moms in particular, of tips for as a working mother. And then I became a mother who was working. So that became my guide to figuring out, how do I balance both my own career and the development of my children and what I wanted to pour out into them. So Ellen Galinsky was the start of that. I love how when you are needing the next phase of something, then it gets created. So it was so important for me. One, with her book, The 6 Stages of Parenthood, was one of the guides. Another one was Mind in the Making. And so Mind in the Making talks about executive functioning skills and what we need to function in society. And so that starts in childhood and then it continues into adulthood. So those 2 books were really pivotal in my life as a parent and as a working mother. So just recently, Ellen created another book, a resource, and it's called The Breakthrough Years, which navigates us through the teenage years. And it gives a different spin on intentionally parenting teenagers and from the perspective that they have something to offer. So that's the piece we're going to continue to talk about, continue to develop as we look at all of those milestones as we move forward. So the key piece is that we want to remember the milestones. We want to record them in some way that's meaningful for you. So our action steps for today's podcast is to capture your milestones. Think about, how will you capture it? How will you make note that we've been on this road before? What will you line your roadmap with? What will be the stones that you gather? Will it be pictures? Will it be stories? Will it be journaling? And we want to capture the milestone. The second thing is you want to give yourself grace, because parenting is hard work. And there isn't a specific manual that tells you everything you need to do and how you need to do it. What's most important is that you stay on the journey, that you stay intentional. So giving yourself grace as you move through. The other thing is you want to learn with your children as they're navigating new stages of development, whether it's in the womb, turning and responding to what you're doing or saying, or if they're empty nesters leaving the house for the first time. Your children are your partners in this journey. So we want to learn with them and from them, as well as teach them and grow them into the things that they need. So that's today's podcast. We are so excited to continue this journey. We want to remind you that we have our A to Z Parenting Conference coming up on May 18th. And the theme for the conference is Joy of Parenting. Can you imagine that? Being in a room filled with women and children and dads, learning what it means to bring back the joy in our parenting. If we can remember what that joy looks like, what it continues to grow and to evolve, then we can parent with intention and we can create a generation that will change the world. I think about joy from this journal entry that I made. This is one of my milestones from December 9th, 2018. I said, grateful for laughter and creative expression as I watched and danced with the boys tonight. So grateful for memory making and the joy in the walls of our home. Great Sunday worshiping and serving as a family. I have that memory because I captured it in my journal. And when I read it, and it's been since 2018, I can re-envision what that joy looks like. So I invite you to come along with me on the journey, come to the parenting conference, Tune back into the next episode, and we'll be right here to continue this journey with you. Thank you for joyful parenting. Have a great day. This episode of In the Background of Life with Kelly Ramsey is brought to you by the Possibilities Podcast platform.